Elon Musk was unrecognizable in a Manhattan cafe. What he heard changed the world. October 23rd, 2023. A regular morning in Manhattan was about to become the most surprising moment of Elon Musk's life. He walked into this coffee shop as just another stranger, but what happened in the next 47 minutes would change not only his perspective, but the future of millions of people. Nobody knew who he was. And maybe for the first time in decades, neither did he. In the silent streets of Manhattan, while the city was still waking up, Elon Musk walked alone. 3 weeks earlier, he had made the most controversial decision of his career, buying Twitter for $44 billion. The media crucified him daily. Investors questioned his sanity. Even his closest friends whispered doubts. But on that cold October morning, something inside him asked for a pause. An opportunity to listen to the real world, away from algorithms and boardrooms. He needed to understand. Did people really hate him? Did his decisions make sense outside the Silicon Valley bubble? And so, disguised with a simple baseball cap and dark sunglasses, the world's richest man stepped into the daily grind, a small coffee shop in Lower Manhattan, completely unrecognized. What he discovered there would shake him to his core. At 7:30 a.m., Elon Musk looked nothing like the billionaire the world knew. No Tesla-branded clothes, no entourage, no security detail. Just a worn Yankees cap, faded jeans, and a Columbia University hoodie he'd borrowed from his son. He had planned this moment for weeks. Ever since the Twitter acquisition, he felt disconnected from reality, from real people with real problems. The boardrooms, the private jets, the constant media attention had created a bubble he desperately needed to escape. Sarah Chen, the 28-year-old barista behind the counter, barely looked up when he approached. She was dealing with her own crisis. Her student loans were crushing her, her second job at night barely covered rent, and her dream of becoming a documentary filmmaker seemed more impossible each day. "What can I get you?" she asked, her voice tired but genuine. "Just a black coffee, please," Elon replied, his voice softer than usual, almost hesitant. And in that simple exchange, something magical began to unfold. The coffee shop buzzed with authentic New York energy. Exposed brick walls, vintage subway tiles, the constant hum of the espresso machine. Most locals were rushing to catch the 8:15 to Midtown. Elon found a weathered wooden table by the window, watching yellow cabs blur past on Houston Street. At the next table, 67-year-old Frank Romano, a retired Verizon engineer, was explaining to his friend how Medicare gaps were forcing impossible choices. His heart medication or groceries, never both. Near the window overlooking the bustling sidewalk, Maria Santos, still in her waitress uniform from the night shift, was crying softly into her phone. The family diner where she'd worked for 3 years had just closed permanently. Behind the vintage copper counter, Sarah Chen calculated her tip jar. $23.40. Enough for ramen and MetroCard refills, but not both. These weren't statistics from economic reports. These were neighbors, real faces with real struggles, happening in the shadow of Wall Street's towers. That's when Sarah approached his table. "Excuse me," she said hesitantly. "I know this sounds weird, but you look really familiar. Are you someone famous?" Elon's heart raced. His cover was blown. But instead of panic, he felt relief. Elon started, then stopped. He looked into Sarah's genuine eyes and made a decision that would change everything. "I'm just someone trying to understand the world better." Sarah smiled. "Aren't we all?" She glanced around the nearly empty cafe. "Mind if I sit? My shift ends in 10 minutes, and you seem like someone with interesting stories." For the next hour, Elon Musk, the man who had revolutionized electric cars, space travel, and social media, sat in a $2 plastic chair, listening to a barista share her dreams. Sarah talked about her documentary project, about wanting to tell stories of everyday heroes, people who changed their communities without recognition or wealth. She spoke with passion about her vision, about using technology to amplify voices that nobody heard. "The problem is," she said, stirring her coffee, "platforms like Twitter, they're designed for people who already have power. The algorithm pushes the loudest voices, not necessarily the most important ones." Elon felt his chest tighten. She was describing exactly what he'd been trying to fix, but from a perspective he'd never considered. "What would you change?" he asked, genuinely curious. "Honestly?" Sarah laughed. "If I owned Twitter, I'd create a feature where local communities could highlight real stories, real problems. Give ordinary people the same reach as celebrities. Imagine if every neighborhood had a voice." As she spoke, Elon realized something profound. He had been thinking about Twitter as a global platform, but he'd forgotten it was made up of individual communities, individual dreams, individual struggles. As the morning rush intensified, the cafe filled with Manhattan's invisible heroes. Frank Romano revealed he'd actually helped design fiber optic networks that powered half the internet. His healthcare app concept could connect seniors directly with pharmacies for bulk medication discounts, saving thousands nationwide. Maria Santos, between tears, mentioned her accounting background. She'd created a system helping immigrant-owned businesses navigate tax codes, but needed technology partnerships to scale it. Even Dave Kim, the cafe owner quietly restocking pastries, was a former Columbia professor who developed AI tutoring methods, but lacked Silicon Valley connections. Elon realized he was sitting in a gold mine of untapped innovation. Solutions to problems his companies had spent millions trying to solve, all hidden in plain sight. But Sarah's next words would shatter everything he thought he knew about himself. As Sarah gathered her Columbia Film School messenger bag, preparing for her afternoon shift at a Tribeca production house, she said something that stopped Elon's heart. "You know what's crazy?" she said, checking her cracked iPhone screen. "Everyone thinks Elon Musk is this visionary, but honestly, I think he's completely disconnected. So obsessed with rockets and robots, he's forgotten the people struggling right here, right now." The words pierced through him like shards of glass. Not because they were malicious, but because they were devastatingly accurate. After she left, Elon sat frozen, staring at his reflection in the cafe's rain-streaked window. Behind him, Frank was rationing his pills, Maria was updating her resume on a library computer, Dave was calculating whether to pay rent or restock inventory. Meanwhile, he'd spent $44 billion on a platform while real solutions sat unheard at the next table. For the first time in decades, the world's richest man felt completely, utterly poor. But then something shifted. What if this moment, this revelation, wasn't a failure, but an opportunity? What if the answer wasn't to abandon his platforms, but to fundamentally reimagine them? What if instead of reaching for Mars, he first helped people reach their potential right here on Earth? Elon opened his notebook and began to write. Not code, not business plans, but names. Sarah, Frank, Maria, Dave. And next to each name, their dreams, their solutions, their potential impact. By the time he finished writing, he had outlined what would become one of the most revolutionary programs in tech history. 3 hours had passed. The lunch crowd was beginning to filter in. Elon knew his time was up. His disguise wouldn't hold much longer, and his security team was probably panicking. But he couldn't leave. Not yet. Not without doing something. He approached Dave at the counter. "Excuse me," he said. "I couldn't help but overhear earlier about your education ideas." Dave looked up, surprised. "Oh, yeah, just pipe dreams, you know how it is." "What if they weren't?" Elon asked. "What if someone wanted to help you make them real?" Dave laughed nervously. "Are you some kind of investor or something?" Elon paused. Then slowly, he removed his sunglasses and his baseball cap. The cafe went silent. Dave's eyes widened. Frank dropped his coffee cup. The few other customers pulled out their phones. "Holy," Dave whispered. You're actually?" "Yeah," Elon said quietly. "And I've been sitting here all morning, learning more about my own companies than I have in the past 5 years." What happened next, no one in that cafe will ever forget. Elon didn't just write checks. He didn't just throw money at problems. Instead, he did something unprecedented. He sat down with each person one by one and listened. Really listened. To Frank, he promised not just money for medication, but a platform to share his healthcare innovations with the world. To Maria, he offered not just a job, but the opportunity to build her financial management system into a tool that could help millions of small businesses. To Dave, he proposed not just funding but a partnership to revolutionize education technology. And to Sarah, when she returned for her evening shift and found Elon still there, he made the biggest promise of all. "I want to offer you something," he said. "Not just money for your documentary, but a position. Help me rebuild Twitter. Help me create that feature you described, where every community has a voice." Sarah stared at him, speechless. "But here's the condition," Elon continued. "You keep working here part-time. Stay connected to real people, real problems. Because the moment we lose touch with this," he gestured around the cafe, "we lose everything." Within 48 hours, the story had leaked. But not the way Elon expected. The people in the cafe didn't sell their story to tabloids. They didn't seek fame or fortune. Instead, they did something more powerful. They started a movement. #Cafe Conversations began trending, not as celebrity gossip, but as a platform for real stories, real solutions, real community impact. Sarah's documentary about Frank's healthcare innovations went viral. Maria's business tool was downloaded by thousands of entrepreneurs. Dave's education platform launched in beta with overwhelming response. But the most significant change was in Elon himself. He instituted Cafe Fridays at all his companies. Days when executives had to work alongside frontline employees. When billionaire decisions were made with barista wisdom. Twitter, now X, launched the Community Voices feature, giving local stories the same algorithmic weight as celebrity posts. Tesla began funding local transportation solutions. SpaceX started an Earth-focused program addressing climate and infrastructure challenges. 1 year later, Elon returned to the daily grind. This time without disguise. The cafe had transformed. Dave's education nonprofit occupied the upstairs loft. Frank's healthcare app had connected 50,000 seniors with affordable medications. Maria's business platform had launched 300 immigrant-owned startups. Sarah, now Tesla's director of community innovation, had never stopped working her Saturday shifts. "You know what's beautiful?" she said, as autumn light streamed through those same rain-streaked windows. "This story isn't about you going undercover. It's about finally being discovered." "Discovered?" Elon asked. "Who you really were underneath the headlines. Just someone who wanted to help, but had forgotten how to listen." The richest man in the world had learned the most valuable lesson. Success isn't about reaching Mars. It's about lifting everyone along the way. Sometimes, the most revolutionary act is simply sitting down and letting the world teach you something new. Would you recognize greatness in disguise? Or are we all just waiting for someone, anyone, to finally listen to our story? What conversation changed your life? Share it below, because the next time you're in a coffee shop, you might be sitting next to the solution the world desperately needs.